Welcome to the Fire Time Podcast, where it's never hot enough, slow is fast, and the way to win is to make it so stupidly easy to buy from you that there's no excuse not to. I'm your host, Tim Reed. And once again, I'm so excited to be here today. Welcome to the Fire Time Podcast. Now, hey, this is the last episode of season 16 of the podcast. As is our tradition, we end every season with a Q&A episode. And the goal of this is basically to just contextualize everything that we covered this season for your company so that you can put these steps in place to continue to grow your business, serve your customers, and create prosperity for yourself and for the people that you serve. Now, just a little bit of housekeeping. So if you're new to the podcast, we have a rhythm of how we run every single season. Basically, we run 2 seasons a year. The first season starts the Tuesday after Labor Day, and it generally runs, 14 to 18 episodes, depending on how the content shakes out. Our second season starts the Tuesday after the HPB Expo in March, and again, usually runs for 14 to 18 episodes. In between, we jump into a series of Fire Time Magazine rapid reaction episodes, and that's what we're going to get into next week until we get ready for season 17, which will start in September. And in our Fire Time Magazine rapid reaction episodes, we listen together to an audio article from the Fire Time Magazine, and then as soon as it's over, I hit record and give you my rapid reaction to it. So those are some really fun episodes, again, that we just put together while we're in between seasons, and that's going to start next week. But for today, we have a number of questions that have been submitted over the last few months. I get these as I travel, as I teach classes, and via email and text as well. And basically for this episode, we are answering the questions that most represent the whole of what we get. So there's some really, really good stuff in here. Again, as I've been on the road teaching and presenting and people have been listening to the podcast, there's been just some really great questions and even some pushback to some of the things that we have talked about. And I'm really excited to get into this and answer those specific questions. So my hope is that this gives you incredible value and that you're able to put these specifics into practice for your business. So as always, we will circle back at the end and I'll share a few parting thoughts. But for now, get out a pen and paper and enjoy this Q&A episode. All right, well, let's go ahead and jump into our questions. I've got the list right here, and there are some really good ones. I've tried to organize them to keep like questions or related questions kind of loosely next to each other so that we can have a rhythm to this. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump in. All right, first question. This is actually one that comes up quite a bit, and it's a really good question. At some point, I think we maybe need to do a dedicated episode to this, but it is: how do you keep a customer on task when you're showing them a fireplace and they keep getting distracted? I.e., wait, what about this one over here? How do you handle that? This is a great question, and this is something that comes up often. And again, I get asked about it quite a bit. For me, I think that this all goes back to following the steps of the sales process. So, I believe in the 7-step Fire Time sales process that we teach here. Step 1 being greet the customer. Step 2, understand their problem. And step 3, advise a solution. When we're showing a customer a fireplace, we're in step 3, advising a solution. What I've found is that if we have done the work already of step 2, which is understanding their problem, distractions happen way less, and it's really easy to keep them on track. If we have not taken the time to understand their problem, man, we got to go all over the place to try to rein these distractions in. And oftentimes they end up, going down so many rabbit trails that the whole process just gets confusing and they get lost. So to give you an example of this, I think that the way we do it is we have to execute step 2 really, really well. So when a customer comes into the showroom, first we take the time to greet them. And as part of that greeting, we invite them to sit down with us so that we can understand a little bit more about the project. And that moves us from step one, greet the customer, to step two, which is understand their problem. In step two, we want to pull out a customer understanding form or a customer intake form. We talked about this earlier on in the season in the episode Stop Quoting, Start Selling. We want to go through this customer understanding form to make sure that we really understand what they have going on and what their problem is. When we've taken the time to ask them, 20 to 30 questions about their project, and we've reiterated to them how we think we understand their problem, and they've confirmed, yeah, that's the problem that we're experiencing. Well, now when we go to show them a fireplace, we have a lot of credibility. And when we're looking at something after going through all of that, if the customer points at something else in the showroom, oftentimes it's like a zero clearance fireplace or, I don't know, some cool like wide linear model, and say that they're looking at a gas insert and they go, oh, what about this? What we can do is we can just simply say, oh yeah, that's a great fireplace for a different kind of home than what you have, but this fireplace is going to be the best fit for your situation. And oftentimes that's all that it takes. Now, sometimes people push a little bit more. And so you could say something like, oh yeah, that's a great option if you were looking to tear down your fireplace completely, bring in a contractor, have them frame up a new wall and build this in and make it more of a remodel project. But based on your situation of wanting to keep the existing fireplace, these options here are really going to be what works best for you. I don't mean to make it sound like too simple, but I can't think of a time where after explaining it like that, a customer still wants to go after it. When we take the time to understand their problem, it allows you to stay focused on the solution and just to say, yeah, that's a great product for a totally different application than what you have. These ones over here are going to be best for you. Now, if you haven't done that, and again, I think back years ago before I operated with the sales process, when I didn't ask enough questions and I'm showing somebody something and they go, hey, what about this? Well, I don't know what their situation is. I have no idea what they're after. And so I have to pivot from what I'm doing and start talking about that. And again, opening up another can of worms, then trying to, bring it all back together to show them the original model. And it just doesn't work. Oftentimes when I secret shop, I purposely do this because if a salesperson hasn't asked me enough questions up front, I'll ask them about all kinds of things in the showroom. And more often than not, this poor salesperson is going all over the place, showing me a million different things because they didn't take the time to understand my problem. And the whole thing just dissolves into a confusing situation. So that's what I would say, is that to keep a customer on point, you have to take the time to understand their problem first. And once you understand it, if they get distracted, just simply hold them accountable to their own situation. And I found that is really effective. So yeah, great question. Okay, here's another question that this actually came from a business in Wisconsin. And this is one that comes up quite a bit. When a customer uses a term incorrectly, they come in asking for B-vent or a fireplace insert when that's actually not what they need or what they have, do you correct them? Yeah, this is really, really good. And again, this question comes up quite a bit. My take on this, I would go back to the idea that StoryBrand talks about of every time you give a customer a new piece of information, it's like you're handing them a bowling ball. And you got to ask yourself, how many bowling balls can this customer hold before they drop them and the sale's lost? Not that many. So we got to be really careful because there are parts of the sale where we're going to have to hand them a bowling ball. We're going to have to explain a concept or a product or something that is new for them. In my mind, correcting them on a term, I don't want to sacrifice a bowling ball on that. So generally speaking, I do not correct them. If a customer comes in, I mean, the classic one, like you said here, is an insert, right? They come in, they're building a new construction home and they say, hey, we're building a new home. And the contractor sent us in to look for an insert for the living room. And again, I've made this mistake in the past, but the temptation for most salespeople is to jump into smart mode and go, well, it's actually not called a fireplace insert because you're in new construction. You don't have an existing brick fireplace. It's called a zero clearance fireplace. And that's going to be, the thing that you need. So let's come over here and take a look at that. I mean, I would just say that them calling it an insert versus a zero clearance has no relevance to getting a product installed for them safely. So if they come in and say that they're looking for an insert, I would just repeat it back to them and go, oh, great. Well, as you can see, we have all kinds of inserts on display here. And, every project and situation is a little bit different. So not every single one is actually safe or even able to be installed, for every particular home. So if it's okay, I'd love just to sit down for a couple minutes and learn a little bit more about your project. And then I'd love to show you some inserts to be a great fit for your home. So I personally like to mirror that back to them, at least in most cases, not always, but I'll often mirror it back to them and then sit down to understand their problem. As we understand the problem, we'll figure out pretty quickly, no, they don't need an insert. They need a zero clearance fireplace or a stove or, whatever it is that they call it. But this allows me to understand what they need, and I can jump to advising a solution without wasting a bowling ball and sounding like a know-it-all, correcting them on something that really doesn't need to be corrected. Now, sometimes there's pushback on this, like, oh, Tim, if they come in asking for B-vent and you go, well, yeah, we sell a whole bunch of B-vent pipe. Can I ask you a few questions about your situation to make sure we get you the right stuff? Well, you're leading them on to think that it actually is B-vent, or you're leading them on to think that it is an insert that they need when they don't. I mean, I don't want to lead anybody onto anything, but I would just look at it as like, we are simply going to bypass their terminology and move to the solution. And that's what I would say. So again, I don't know. I mean, if they want to come in and say they're looking for a bicycle, I don't know. Okay. You can choose whether you want to use the term bicycle or not. But generally speaking, if they say they're looking at an insert, I don't think it's worth correcting them, because when you show them a product, you're going to come over to the wall and say, hey, based on everything you said, here's the fireplaces that are going to work best for you. And I'd love to show you why they're such a good fit. There's really not a reason to correct them and say, well, I know you came in and you said you were looking at an insert, but these are actually zero clearance fireplaces because of such and such thing. And, it's really important that you know the difference, because if you pick the wrong one, you're going to burn the house down. It's like, no. You have understood their problem, show them a solution, and just let the terminology fall where it falls. So that's my opinion. Some people say it's playing too fast and loose. I would just say it's being kind to your customer, and it's keeping the main thing, which is the solution for their problem. I would ask the question, would you rather be right in that you corrected them, or would you rather sell them a fireplace that's going to be a great fit for their home? That's the way that I would look at that. All right. Next question. Okay. This came up from the Midwest when I was back there just a little while ago, and it is this. So as context in this conversation, we were talking about the value when you're doing an in-home visit of giving numbers and an installation date on site. And when you do those things, it really helps the customer make a commitment. So the question is, how can you give an installation date on site when you depend on outside trades you don't control and product back orders? Okay, great question. And this is really common pushback. So again, I'm a huge advocate. When you're out at a customer's house, if you can put together final numbers for the project, show it to the customer, call the office to get your next available installation date, and present all that to the customer and ask them if they'd like to take advantage of that date, I mean, your sales will skyrocket. They will skyrocket. I would be shocked if you don't see a 20 to 30% increase in your close rate if you're not doing that right now. And I know it's extra work. I know it's difficult, but it makes such a big difference. But there are real difficulties, right? So what do you do if there are outside trades? How in good conscience can you give an installation date? So I would say this is where you have to do the hard work of connecting with your trades. So, every company, if you don't offer it in-house, should have a relationship with somebody that does gas line, with an electrician, with a framer, with a sheetrocker, whatever you don't offer in-house that does need to be a part of certain installations, you need to have a relationship. Now, with this, I would, on a regular basis, be making phone calls and asking, your trade partners, hey, generally speaking, how far out are you for work like this? And I would schedule based on that. I found, at least working with electricians, a lot of them are not as organized as you. And so if you say, hey, how far out are you? They might tell you, oh my gosh, we're slammed. We're 5 weeks out, 6 weeks out. But oftentimes, if you call them and say, hey, I got a job next week and I need you out there, you can come any time of day as long as it's Tuesday. It's amazing how they pivot and they can get out there. So a couple things, I would say, like, forward progress helps things move quickly. So again, if you go to an electrician and just say, hey, how far out are you? They're going to give you a number. And I'm not saying that they're lying or anything like that, but that's going to be further out, I promise you, than if you call them and say, and again, assuming you have a pre-existing relationship, and you say, hey, I need you at a job site in 2 weeks. Can you be there this day? It doesn't matter the time of day. I need you to be there. I've found that they have ways of making that happen. So I would do both of those things. I would ask how far they're out. I would keep, inside your scheduler's, desk or wherever it is on their computer. I would just simply have a running list of approximately how far out your trades are, and I would schedule based on that. But I would put a date on it, and then you can go to those trades and say, hey, we need you on or before this date. And oftentimes they will move to get it done. Okay, now this plays into back orders. Okay, so Tim, you're saying on site, give the customer a date, but what if the product is back ordered, right? As I record this, it's in early July, and let's say I give a date of early August for the installation, but the product gets back ordered, or the electrician has to push it out. What do? Well, this is where it's really important to have a weekly meeting where your scheduler, your warehouse team, and probably some type of leadership in the company needs to look at the installation schedule and adjust as needed. A big mistake, we could do a whole episode about this. A big mistake people make is they wait to schedule until the product comes in. In my view, it's a terrible idea, and it will always drag your schedule down. Instead, by meeting once a week as a team to look ahead for the next month at the jobs that are in the books, confirm with your trades, talk to your vendors, and week by week by week, push things back or pull things forward based on availability. That's the way that you maximize the schedule. Grant Falco is just maniacal about this. Never lose a day. Never lose a day. Never send the crew home because there was no work to do. Pull stuff forward, push stuff back. And a basic rule that I like to apply is a concept we've talked about in the past called yellow zone, red zone. So basically, if a job is less than a week out, it is in the red zone. And if it's more than a week out, it's in the yellow zone. If a job is in the red zone, so when you go to look ahead for the next week, anything within that week where every single piece is not in stock and every trade involved is not confirmed at the time of that meeting gets pushed back a week. And you pull things forward, right? You want to have a pull forward list. Anytime you have a job that you give a date to the customer, you can ask them, hey, if we're able to get this in sooner, do you want to be on our move ahead list? A lot of people will say yes. So this is how you do it. In my view, it's not worth, risking a surround not coming in when you have 3 jobs you could pull forward. Instead, you push that back and you pull forward. Now, Where I'm going with this is how you handle it with the customer. So if you have these meetings every week, you're going to know ahead of time if the job needs to be pushed back. As long as you can call that customer with preferably at least a week's notice to say, hey, we're checking in and we're really sorry about this, but we had a back order on one of your pieces that's going to be coming in for your project, and we need to push the job back to wait for it to come in. We're really sorry about that. Here's the date that we can install it, and we're going to be monitoring this to make sure that it comes in. We'll communicate with you if there's any other changes. Well, that's a professional organization, and the customers, honestly, I mean, what recourse do they have? They go, oh man, that's a bummer. Okay, no problem. Where it gets bad is when day of you call and you have to push it back, or day of you get there and whoops, something's missing. We'll do part of the job now, but then next week you got to take another day off work to make it happen. No. That doesn't work. By managing this in time, every single week, having this meeting, it will maximize your schedule. It will keep your vendors accountable, and your customers will respond really well. One other thing, again, I know I'm going long on this, but I think it's really important. If you do it the other way, right? Let's say that you're in the house, you don't have an installation date, and you can't put together final numbers. Well, it's really hard for a customer to make a decision when that's the case. Okay. But let's just pretend they eventually do place a deposit. They call you or they come into the store, they place a deposit. Well, if you can't give them an installation date on the spot, every day that goes by, their anxiety goes up. They've just given you however much, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. They've given that to you, and they have no idea when you're going to come out. And so they call you a week later. Hey, we're checking in to see about the installation date. And you go, oh yeah, we're still waiting for that product to come in. And they're getting more anxious and more anxious and more anxious. Okay. Then another week goes by. They call you. Hey, is it in? No, it's not in yet. We'll let you know. They're getting more anxious, more anxious, more anxious. Okay. So then the product comes in, and then you call them to schedule the date, but then something goes wrong. That customer will flip out because their anxiety has been heightened every day that goes by where you have the money and they don't know what's going on. The difference is in the home, if you give them an installation date based on your best educated guess of your vendors and your product availability, say you book it for 3 weeks out, 4 weeks out, 5 weeks out, whatever it is, if you give them that date, they give you the money and they're not thinking about it again because the date is on the schedule. Hey, we gave them the money. They're coming out on August 8th to do the job. I can keep moving with my day, right? Their anxiety is not building. Now, when you call them 2 weeks later, if there is a situation, you're proactively calling them and saying, hey, we're checking in. I'm so sorry. We had you scheduled for this date. It looks as if we're not going to be able to hit it because of this back order on these products. And so we need to push it back to the following week. What day would be best for you? Or, we can do it on this date. And then you just say, hey, we're going to be continuing to be in communication with our vendors. We'll let you know if anything changes. That's a bummer, but their anxiety has not been building the whole time. So again, it goes back to the process. When you can follow the process, it really does take care of itself largely. And so that's how I would handle that. Yeah, great question. Okay, man, we got a lot more questions, so I gotta get moving on this. Okay, we're gonna switch now to marketing questions. We have a couple, actually a number of these. First, this goes back to the episodes that we had with April Sunshine Hawkins, the class that I taught at AES Dealer Days about crafting an effective marketing message. Okay, so if clarity always beats cleverness, doesn't that mean that you can never use a metaphor, allegory, or theme at all? Okay, so this is a great question, and I want to be super clear with this. So in the language of Donald Miller, we talked about this, earlier this season. When it comes to marketing, clarity always beats cleverness. It always beats cleverness. The example that we did was of that company called Apollo Plumbing, right? It was very cute and it was very clever, right? Their name was Apollo. So they made the theme of their company the moon landing. And the two plumbers on the truck were astronauts and they're on the moon. And they use words like, hey, we're your mission control to make sure the launch goes perfect. Okay. That's cute and that's clever, but it is not clear. It's totally confusing and it has nothing to do with actually solving the problem of the customer that you're trying to help. So clarity will always win. If on the headline of your website, if you have a message that says something like where quality and integrity meet, it doesn't mean anything. Or if you have some, play on words that has to do with like the name of your company, oftentimes all that does is confuse the customer, and you'd have a lot better luck just simply having a tagline that says, "We keep your home warm and safe in a power outage," or "Stay warm on the coldest winter days." Something like that is crystal clear. Okay, so generally speaking, clarity will always beat cleverness. Now, that said, if you can be clever and clear, win-win. Like, that's great. That's the best of all worlds. But it's hard to do, and often clarity is sacrificed for cleverness. Okay, so yeah, if you can do it, great. I gotta get some water here. I'm ranting and raving too much. Okay, so to this point though, clarity always beats cleverness. Does that mean that you can never use metaphor, allegory, or a theme? No, I would say always use metaphor, allegory, and a theme when it's helpful. This is huge. An example of this would be if you, in like a marketing piece or on your website, I guess we'll just pick a website because that's something that everybody has. If you have a page that talks about gas inserts, you could say, "No responsible homeowner leaves their windows open 24 hours a day. So plug the hole in your fireplace with a gas insert," right? So there's a metaphor there, right? The metaphor is like you wouldn't leave your windows cracked open, so don't leave your fireplace cracked open. That, I guess that's an analogy, but metaphor, allegory, and a particular theme is very powerful. Like in pretty much any sales conversation I want to use allegory and metaphor to help make abstract concepts clear and concrete. So I don't think in any way these compete against each other. Oftentimes, using a metaphor provides clarity, but we want to use a metaphor or like an allegory for the right thing. Again, going back to that example of like the company we talked about, and I'm sure they're a great company. I've never used them for, plumbing services, but I'm sure they're great. But rather than using a weird allegory theme to like explain the name of my company, instead, let's use a metaphor or an allegory to make very clear the solutions that we have for people's problems and to take abstract concepts and make them concrete. So that's what I would say to that. Hey, this is Tim from the Fire Time Podcast, and I hope you're enjoying this episode. Hey, if you're in a situation where you have been struggling with sales and you're trying to find the right tools to help your team grow, then you have to check out Wi-Fire. Wi-Fire is something that we've been working on for the last 8 years, and these are tools made to help fireplace companies sell more products, whether in your showroom or on your website. Just recently, we announced an AI fireplace visualizer where with every website that we build, you can have each of your fireplaces set up to where a customer can snap a picture of their home. It will visualize that fireplace in it so they can absolutely imagine what it will be like, and then you can quote it out for them to buy. To get a demo of this, you can go to wifire.com. Every company in our industry needs the right tools to grow sales. Wi-Fire is going to give you that. So check out wifire.com. Make sure to look at the AI fireplace visualizer because it's absolutely mind-blowing. Hope you enjoy the rest of this episode. Next question, marketing related as well. On a website or estimate, what's the call to action? And does place deposit feel too aggressive? This is a big one. Whenever I work with companies on marketing, this comes up a lot. People don't want to be pushy. And so they'll use call to actions like get more details, contact our team, learn more. They hesitate using real strong calls to action like book appointment now, or schedule video call, place deposit, order now. And I would just say that it's not too aggressive at all. When someone is working with your company or they're on your website, they know what you're trying to do. They know that you're trying to sell them a fireplace, and that's actually why they're there. They want to be called to action. They don't want to be taken advantage of. But I mean, I literally just had this happen the other day. I was on a website like looking to take action on a service, and I'm going through this website and I'm like, I don't know what on earth to do. Like I just want a button that says order now so that I can click it and keep on moving. So, you got to remember that you want this call to action to be the direct solution to your customer's problem. They can read all they want about fireplaces, but at some point, order now, place deposit, get on the schedule. This is the solution to their problem. This is how they get to it. So I would say, no, your calls to action need to be strong. And, on your website, get estimate, book appointment, schedule video call, order now. Things like this are what need to be there. If you have like learn more, contact us, get details, those are weak calls to action that, in my view, are not very effective. Now, okay, on that note, I love having a primary and a secondary call to action. That is perfect, right? So maybe on your estimates, you have two calls to action. You have place deposit, schedule consultation. You could have place deposit, apply for financing, right? Primary, secondary. On your website, you could have get estimate or browse fireplaces, right? Primary and secondary calls to action are awesome. You can highlight the primary one, put the secondary one in a more generic font, text color, that sort of thing. But yeah, I would say if you understand your customer's problem, be direct and clear. And no, place deposit is not too strong of a call to action. It's an appropriate call to action. All right. Two more on marketing. This is kind of jumping into the realm of follow-up. Okay. If a follow-up campaign is automated and templated, i.e. the same emails/texts everyone gets, doesn't it lose the personal touch and just make us generic? Well, yes, it is generic in the sense that if you use templated emails and templated text messages, which I highly, highly, highly recommend, it is generic. But that is absolutely okay. So, I would say like anytime you provide an estimate to a customer, you should put them into an automated email or text follow-up campaign. And I would say there should be a lot of emails, like probably 15 or more, over 3 to 6 weeks, a lot of emails. I would recommend when it comes to automated messages to, like, in this case, like to follow up on an estimate, I would recommend keeping them short, direct, and a little bit punchy. So you can find reasons to follow up, hey, first name, comma, I'm checking in on your estimate because it's been a few days, period. I wanted to see if you'd like to place the order or if you had any other questions I could answer. Let me know. And we would love to get your project going. Sincerely, salesperson's name. Something like that is totally okay. Again, like the purpose of it is to engage the customer into a conversation. So you can totally use automation to do that. That's what I would say. Now, again, a different type of campaign. Let's say someone goes to your website and you have a downloadable PDF that is like 4 steps to find the perfect fireplace. And so someone downloads this generic piece of content to help them understand how to pick the right fireplace. Well, this is a little bit, it's a different kind of campaign than like the direct, hey, do you want to place the order that we just talked about a second ago? And in the case of this, you probably want to have, again, 7 to 20 emails that are long, that are for the purpose of helping the customer solve their problem. And this means you're going to give some insight into how your company has helped other customers solve their problem. You might have testimonials in it. You might have a product profile. You might have a video walking someone through your showroom. You might have an installer talking about the common problems that they see on a job site that you're equipped to overcome. And these emails are automated, and it's okay for them to be automated, because the point is that you're giving the customer information to help them in their research as they look to make a decision, right? So after a customer's shown interest in your product and they've given you an email address, now they're doing research. They're in the research phase. So whether it's automated or not, give them tools for research and then invite them into a human-to-human connection with calls to action like get estimate, schedule, showroom visit, book in-home appointment, things like that. So yeah, I think that it's the world that we live in, and I think that automation is great. But, and I guess I should say this too before we move on, you have to do it in combination with manual follow-up, right? So shoot, if you're sending that customer emails to follow up and ask them if they want to place the deposit on the job, you should be calling them as well and leaving real voicemails. So it's the combination of manual plus automated follow-up that's really, really good. And no, I don't think it's too generic. I think you need to be very thoughtful about it. But no, it's not too generic, especially if you combine it with real phone calls and things like that. Okay, here we go. Are emails more or less effective as follow-ups by text? I think that means are emails more or less effective as follow-ups than text? And where does phone fit in? Again, this piggybacks right on the last one. Obviously, it depends on a person's preferences, but in general. So yeah, I would definitely check in with a customer and ask their preferred method of follow-up. But I would say I think emails are so powerful. Even a customer deletes that email, every time they see it, your company is in their mind. So they might delete 10 emails from you, but there will be a day where they are especially thinking about their problem. And if you've been the one following up via email, they're probably going to think about you. So yeah, I for me, I send a lot of automated emails when I follow up with customers. And again, just for like educational things and stuff like that, I found that when I was, running retail stores, we found that we had about a 3% unsubscribe rate. It's not bad. 97% of people stayed subscribed. And I think, again, this is true with me. Like I sign up, for email lists for products and things where I get emailed every day sometimes, and I delete that email every single day. But at some point I place the order, right? And so yeah, I would say I love email. It gives you direct access to that person, and I think it's really, really valuable. Texts are great too. I think that texts should be way shorter. So like if you're going to do like an education outreach, and again, I hesitate to even use the term education, but if you're trying to help the customer with their research by providing insight for that, it's pretty tough to do that over text, at least for me. I hate reading text messages and I hate sending them. I say that maybe hyperbolically, but I do not want to read a massive text message. If it's short and quick and I can just glance at it, okay, cool. Hey, they've got a sale going on. I'm going to click here to take advantage, right? They're going to be in my neck of the woods next week. I'm going to click here to book the appointment. Perfect. I would say with text messages, keep it short, keep it direct, and use email to provide nuance and detail. Okay, phone. Yes, you can't underestimate the phone. So if we're doing a follow-up campaign, absolutely enroll the customer into automated emails, enroll them into automated texts. And then I would say, every opportunity that's at least an A or a B level should be followed up with like on the phone at least 7 times. And that's an at least. And this means that you need to be able to leave a thoughtful, kind, gracious voicemail. People will let you know if they buy somewhere else. And the cool thing is like you can check them off that list. But until they let you know that, you owe it to them to make the phone call. So I think there's a lot of power to this. When you're calling customers, when you're emailing them, when you're texting them, you're giving them multiple ways to say yes and no to you. And that's actually what you want. You want to give the customer multiple ways to say yes, give them multiple ways to say no. And yeah, they'll do that. And again, like, you don't need a super high close rate to have a really successful business. The most successful salespeople I've ever worked with close about 40% of the time. I mean, it's kind of like, like batting in the MLB, right? Gosh, you can get pretty darn far with a 350 batting average. I think it's the same thing in sales. So yeah, hope that helps. All right. Okay, two more questions. Oh man, okay, this first one's great. This actually came in when I was in Florida, a question that someone specifically asked about here that we're going to address. I'd love to learn more about reporting on tracking door swings in a company. So door swings are my favorite metric. I think they're my favorite metric. I have a lot of favorite metrics, but this is one of them. So any time that we're talking about marketing and sales and things like that, I always want to know door swings. I want to know how many door swings are we getting? What products are people looking at? Are they walking out the door with an estimate, with an in-home visit? The reason why is that until we know this, I just hesitate to tell people to spend anything on marketing or to increase their effort for leads or things like that, because I just want to know first, are we being faithful with what we've been given? My old boss, Jeff Melberg, would always say like, hey, if you're picking raspberries, make sure there's not a hole in your net, like before being concerned about getting more raspberries. So for me, like the door swings and the showroom traffic, that lets me know, do we have a tight net? So, yeah, here's my suggestion. I would, and this is where, oh my gosh, like AI is going to be able to help you so much. So, if you'd have asked me this a year ago, I would have had a different, more complicated answer. But basically, I would just make up a weekly showroom traffic form. I would organize your columns from left to right based on day of the week. So you got Monday on the left, and then Tuesday, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And you can, if you're closed on Saturday or on Sunday, you can blank that out. And then I would have categories going top to bottom of everything that you offer that a customer could be looking at. Gas insert, gas stove, gas zero clearance fireplace, pellet insert, pellet stove, pellet zero clearance fireplace, wood insert, wood stove, go through barbecues, will call pickup, small parts, whatever it is. And in addition to this, I would have something about like, how did customers hear about you? AI, internet search, referral, designer recommended it. However it is that people hear about you, I would have that on this. And then I would also classify what type of customer this is. Are they a retail customer? Are they a builder? Are they a builder client? Are they a designer? Are they an architect? So as people come in, after they leave, you want to check the box of all these things. Okay, how did they hear about us? What type of customer were they? What did they look at? Did we write them up in an estimate? And you want to have this on a weekly basis. I totally realize that there is human error with this. And some companies are like, no, we're going to put a laser on the front door so we can maniacally check people coming in and going out. I don't know. For me, I think it's much better to have a human keep track of this. And yeah, you might miss somebody every once in a while, but you really have detailed information. Hey, this week we had 17 people come in on Saturday. 4 of them looked at a wood insert. 2 of them looked at a ZC gas fireplace. 3 of them looked at an outdoor kitchen. These ones walked out with an estimate. These ones walked out with an estimate and an in-home visit scheduled. That level of detail is really important, because this is how you make decisions on what to put on your showroom floor. This is how you make decisions on, do we need to do marketing? What do we need to market? Where we need to provide training for our salespeople? It's really incredible. Now, as far as reporting goes, I would, on a monthly basis, take these showroom weekly traffic forms, just go upload them into your AI provider of choice and just ask it questions and say, hey, what are you observing based on this? Where does my sales team need to improve? What opportunities should I be taking advantage of? Is there, you could tell them on my showroom floor, I have X amount of pellet stoves. I have, Y amount of gas fireplaces. It will give you incredible insight, but it can only do that if you faithfully turn that in. So that's what I would say about reporting door swings. It's a crazy metric. I've told this fact so many times in the past, but in my early days before I started tracking this, if you would have asked me what percentage of customers walk out the door with an estimate, I would have said it's about 80%. Most of them do. We started measuring it. It was under 20%. And honestly, as I have gone to work with companies, almost all of them tell me the same thing. Oh yeah, we write up a lot of estimates. Probably 8 out of 10 people, 9 out of 10 people that come in looking for a fireplace, they walk out with an estimate. Once it starts getting tracked, I have never, ever had a company be over 20%. So maybe yours is. I've just never seen it before. And I know that for myself, before I tracked it, man, I felt prey to the same thing. So if you can track that, it's really the foundation for a lot of things. And yeah, man, it's powerful. So that's what I would say. All right, last question, and this actually comes from a business in the state of Washington. It's a question about me, and it says, you have a lot of things going on. How do you stay focused on getting things done? Man, yeah, it's a great question. And I guess I would say this, I have a lot going on. I don't know if I have more or less than anybody else. I think everybody else, everyone's got a lot going on these days. Um, and I would say, like, there's a lot of things I don't get done. There's a lot of things I don't get done. But for me, I just try to prioritize the things that matter most. So like, I try to limit distractions. So like, one of the best decisions that I ever made was probably 7 years ago, taking email off my phone. That might be the best decision I've ever made. 'Cause it helps keep me more focused. So, like, when it comes to my phone, I try to lock it down. Um, I don't have social media on my phone. I don't have a news app on my phone. Um, I have my internet browser locked out, with a password that I don't know. Um, and I keep my phone in, like, black and white grayscale, mode. And what that does is it makes my phone a lot less of a distraction. So like I can use it like a tool. If I need to call somebody, if I need to text. I do have Slack, which is the internal communication tool that our team uses. So I can internally communicate with people, and the team can internally get a hold of me. But I found that this really helps me to use my phone as a tool to do the things that I need versus a time suck that pulls me into just wasting time, browsing, I don't know, ESPN or the internet or social media or the news, whatever it is. So that's something that for me is really helpful. Honestly, too, I try to get a lot of sleep. I try to prioritize sleep. I sleep with like my Apple Watch on, and it just gives me readings about how I'm sleeping. And like I generally speaking, I try to get like at least 7 hours of sleep each night. I try to get over 8 hours if I can, and I found that helps me. Um, I think too, so like we've talked about this in the past on the podcast, but I really believe in a rhythm. Like with our companies, we have a quarterly um, rhythm where we every quarter we look at our kind of our main priorities of where we're trying to go as a company. We have 5 priorities, and then we say, okay, for this next upcoming quarter, as I record this now, we're actually about to do our one for this current quarter that just started. Um, of our 5 main priorities of where the company's trying to go, these are the things that are most important to get done this quarter. And for me, I try to stay laser focused on that. What are the most important things to get done this quarter? And it's not that I totally ignore everything else that comes in, but if I have to pick, I will ignore other things to make sure that those most important things get done. And this can be tough, at least for me, it means that there's things that I don't prioritize as much. Um, as an example, like personal email is something for me that I don't prioritize as highly as whatever it is, like getting this important objective done for the quarter. Like say that we have a sales objective, or we're trying to build out like a new feature for our software. We're trying to figure out how to upgrade the podcast to video. That was a big thing, like, before the podcast went to video. Like we're trying to figure out, how do we do that? What equipment do we need? So for me, like those things that are really important, I try to actively prioritize that, and I'll ignore other things. And that is, it doesn't always make everybody happy. And it does mean that there's times where I'm like, oh man, like I got to get back to this email. And that can be hard, just to say, hey, I'm really sorry. I got this email a few weeks ago and I'm just replying now. Thanks for your patience. But what I've found is that, I guess I've heard Gary Keller say this. So Gary Keller is he has a great podcast. I don't know if they're still doing it, but it's called Think Like a CEO. Like go right now, like subscribe to that podcast and listen to every episode. I think I picked it up during COVID. He's the former CEO of Keller Williams Realty, and he's a very, very wise man. And he's been the CEO of this massive company. And he just says, look, if you want to be somebody who is always up to date in your communication with everybody, and you never let anybody down, and you always have everything checked off on your to-do list, he goes, good luck. You will never be an effective CEO. You're never going to be an effective CEO, because an effective CEO has to ruthlessly prioritize what is most important. You have to ruthlessly prioritize that. It doesn't mean that the other stuff doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that those people don't have an inherent dignity and value, but we are finite creatures, right? The way we've been made, we only have so much time, we only have so much energy, and there are only so many hours in the day. And if we don't decide to put things first, to put first things first, in the language of Stephen Covey, everything else will rob our time. Everything else will. And I guess, speaking of Stephen Covey, I guess this is what it comes down to. I'm not perfect at this at all. Not at all. But I think about his example of like the big rocks and like the gravel. Famous, if you go YouTube, I go to YouTube and type in like Stephen Covey big rocks. You'll see this video of him teaching at a convention back in like the 1980s. He has this fish tank, and there's a lady that is up from the audience, and he's using her as an example and saying, okay, hey, this fish tank is like your capacity in life to get things done. Right? This is your schedule for the week. And what he does is he pours all this gravel into it. And that gravel is like, random messages, phone calls, emails. In today's world, maybe it would be like social media. It would be, someone calls you from the field and has this question, or you get this random thing that comes in. And then you have all these big rocks that he hands her, and he says, okay, now you got to go put all of these in. Okay. And when the fish tank is full of gravel, you physically can't put the big rocks in. The big rocks would represent like exercise, sleeping, getting the most important things done, eating well, making time for your kids, making time for your spouse, important initiatives at work, that sort of thing. So you can't do it when it's full of gravel. But if you pour the gravel out and you put the big rocks in first, you can pour the gravel in and it all fits. And I think that that's a really apt analogy. So, that's what I would say. And I don't claim in any way to do it perfectly, but those are some things that have really helped me. I think that if we want to be an effective leader, we need to ruthlessly prioritize what's most important. And if everything is important, nothing is important. It doesn't mean that people and tasks and things don't matter. It doesn't mean that. But if you are in a position of leadership, it is your responsibility to lead the organization forward in the best way possible. And that is like, you can't do it if you are always distracted by peripheral things. So those are some of the things that I try to employ. And, I do the best that I can. And again, for me, like I have a lot of disciplines in my life, again, with my phone and with my time and other things. I have a lot of disciplines to try and help me. And with all of that, like, again, like whether it comes to like exercising or reading or like locking down my phone and all those things, it's not because I have it figured out. It's not because, oh, I'm so good at it, that's why I do this. No, man, it's like the Apostle Paul says, like, the law proves the lawbreaker. For me, it's like I am such a lawbreaker. That's why I have to have this law in place. Like I have to have these things in place because I don't have it figured out, right? The reason that our company has to do quarterly, review and objectives, the reason why is because if we didn't, like, dude, I'd flounder in chaos. And so knowing myself, putting those guardrails in place allows me to have freedom, right? I mean, I was in the car one time with Tim Rethlake, and the priest from his church called him up, and he just made this comment to him, and he said, "But um, obedience is freedom." And I think that that's really the truth, right? If we know ourselves and we know where our weak points are, that as we put guardrails in place to help us, obedience to those guardrails is where freedom comes from. So, yeah, great question. And I mean, really top to bottom, I mean, these are really, really awesome questions. So yeah, my hope is that this helps put into context a lot of the things that we've talked about this season, and that you can use this to go out and crush it for your company. Well, I hope you enjoyed that Q&A episode. Again, these are some of my favorite ones to do. I think it's really cool, to interview guests and teach classes and things like that. But these episodes are really neat because we're able to dive deep and nuance this out specifically for your business. So thank you to those of you who sent in questions. If you have a question for a future episode, you can just go to itsfiretime.com/ask, and you can enter that in, and we'll do our best to get to it in a future podcast episode. Now, like I said at the beginning of today's episode, we run basically 2 seasons of the podcast each year, where we put together interviews and we teach classes and things like that. And we are at the end of season 16. So starting next week, we're going to jump into our Fire Time Magazine rapid reaction episodes, where we listen together to an audio article from the Fire Time Magazine, and as soon as it's over, I hit record and give you my rapid reaction to it. And I really like these episodes because, first off, the content in the Fire Time Magazine is really awesome, and it's written by people all over North America in our industry. So the perspectives are just terrific. And at least for me, it's really neat to revisit this and just talk about what I find to be really valuable with it. And so again, for the next number of weeks until we get to the Tuesday after Labor Day, we're going to listen together to articles that I've handpicked from the Fire Time Magazine and talk about the content in it. So I'm looking forward to that, and I hope that you get some value out of it as well. Now, if you're not subscribed to the Fire Time Magazine, this is a resource that's totally free. Basically, once a month, we produce a digital magazine for our industry, and there are written articles along with audio articles. And if you go to itsfiretime.com/subscribe, you can just put in your email address, or anybody on your team can do the same thing. And then absolutely free, every month when a new issue drops, you'll get all the articles in it. And then every Friday, we send out a featured article. So this is just a really good way to keep your team rallied around the same thing and pointed in the same direction, is to have like a common source of content like that you guys can just continue to hash out and talk about. So really, really excited to jump into those episodes. As we round out season 16 of the podcast, for me, like every time we're at the beginning or the end of a podcast season, it's just really cool to reflect on the ground that we've covered. Like, I mean, I think about where I was. I mean, we've spanned a lot of years with this podcast now. I think about where I was in like the summer of 2017 before this started, where we were just starting to record some of the initial conversations that would end up being the first season of the podcast. And I'm just floored at the ground that we've been able to cover in the community that we've been able to build. And it's because of you listening and watching. And so it's not lost on me that community has been created, and I'm really thankful for it. I definitely don't take hosting this for granted. And, we just hope that it continues to give you value for years to come. Now, with that said, if this podcast today has been a blessing for you and you want to support the show financially, you can do that by going to the website itsfiretime.com/join. That's itsfiretime.com/join. And, for those of you who do support this month in and month out, we're incredibly thankful. If you do want to sign up to support it, we have some awesome gifts that you can see there, just as our way of saying thank you. We see you. And it is not lost on us that you choose to support this, and we're incredibly grateful for it. Now, if you're not able to support it, that's totally okay. We want this to be a gift for you that helps you grow yourself and your company and create prosperity for all the people that you serve. So we hope that it does that. Now, as we end the episode today, I hope that the answers to these questions have given you value, and that you are able to put it into practice and see the benefit from it. Next week, we're going to jump into our Fire Time Magazine Rapid Reaction series throughout the rest of the summer, and then we are going to hit the ground running in September with season 17 of the podcast. So to those of you listening, to those of you watching, thank you so much for being a part of this community. We hope it gives you value and cannot wait to talk to you again very soon. Thank you for listening to the Fire Time Podcast. To learn more, visit the website itsfiretime.com. Music from this episode was written and recorded by In Bloom out of Portland, Oregon. We thank you for listening to the Fire Time Podcast, where it's never hot enough, slow is fast, and the way to win is to make it so stupidly easy to buy from you that there's no excuse not to. We'll see you next time.